Is Canada Post's position still the same, that you don't want that?
We don't want federal intervention. We need to find the common ground so we can build a path forward to build our business back up. And that's getting agreements would mean that we're both on the same page, and then we can go after the competition and get more parcels and all things like that. But right now we are far apart, but we want agreements, and we're still committed to that process.
So let me ask you and challenge you on the point about how much Canada Post wants it. What we just heard from the union was that they presented you a framework that they felt would get you back to the table, and that you delivered your response through the media and not directly to them. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Well, we had been in a confidential process, and they presented it in saying the confidential process is now over, so they pushed it out first. So, but we understand there's so many people, employees, charities, small businesses looking for a glimmer of hope. And what came across, and we've just got the costing back, we're looking at, with their demands, $2.9 billion over the next 4 years in additional costs on top of our costs today. So,
and that's related to wages? Is it related to part-time versus full-time on weekends?
The big ticket items in there would be the wages, where it's 9% in the first year at 19%. And we understand that they move forward, but that's new vehicles for rural carriers. That is more full-time employees. That is a number of things. And we haven't even added. We're 4 weeks into this, and they still have demands for us to hire our contracted cleaning services and other contracted services and make them permanent Canada Post employees.
So is it all of that in the aggregate that is keeping you from actually having a conversation with the union and vice versa, or is it specific to the wages? I imagine if you go through the line items you just listed, the wages are the biggest portion of that.
And I don't want to bore people with the details, but the details matter. The reality is we have, since the beginning, and we're going to continue to be there, say we need to bring some flexibility into our model so that we can provide the kinds of services that Canadians and Canadian retailers and small businesses are looking for, weekend services and things like that. And yes, that's going to require some part-time employees, because then you can build for the ebb and flow. But 95% of our delivery personnel are already full-time. And also, why are we not just looking to hire more full-time employees? If you look at our collective agreement, under the urban collective agreement, the job security is, everyone hears that and says, okay, well, that's nice. What it means is if you've been full-time for more than 5 years, you can never be laid off. If we don't have work for you, we're paying you until you retire.
But you agreed to that, with all due respect.
We agreed.
The stuff that you're saying now and that you said even in this media response yesterday is all stuff that was bargained in a collective agreement. You're kind of throwing it back in the union's face.
No. We are saying this is the starting point, and this is where you need to understand that when people hear job security, like, oh, that seems nice, but it's really, like, if you've been here for less than 5 years, it means if you have to be laid off, you have 5 years on the bench being paid with benefits. It just means when the union is saying we need to hire more and more full-time people, it's a job for life. And then with the pension, it's a commitment for your entire life.
So it's essentially that is driving the resistance to full-time. Is that what I understand? Because from what I get from the union, it's like, well, you're offering benefits to part-time anyway. So why do you need the part-time, pay 5 part-time people what you can just pay 2 full-time people and augment their schedules?
Because we don't control the number of parcels that come into the postal system every single day. It's dependent on how many things people are buying online. There's times of the year where things dry up a lot. There's times of the year, like right now, where it's very, very busy. You want to be able to ebb and flow.
And if you can't do that with full-time employees?
We do have full-time, and 95% of our delivery people are full-time today, and we will add more full-time people because we want to grow the business. But if it's simply, it has to be mostly full-time, and part-time has all these restrictions, including what they're looking for, a minimum 20 hours a week. There may be some weekends we don't have that. We just need the flexibility so that we can provide weekend service, the convenience that means we are not spurning parcels. Customers like major retailers and small businesses are deciding to go elsewhere because we can't provide the convenience that customers are looking for. They want things on a weekend. We can't provide it except for at a very expensive proposition.
My understanding is, though, that the union at least put into writing that they're willing to negotiate on the prospect of weekend delivery in this latest framework that they presented to you. Again, I get it that you're far apart on how that happens, but isn't that enough to get you back to the table? And I'll put it to you the same way I put it to Mr. Gallant. There are millions of Canadian charities whom I've interviewed who are out hundreds of thousands of dollars because of this strike. Isn't that enough to get you both back to the table?
We're $700 million a year apart here. That's their offer is $2.9 billion over the next 4 years, and they only put a bunch of bullets out for their offer. In there is so many things that just strangle any flexibility we have. Even
can't you talk it out?
But even the most minor change in our operations would require we're all for consultation, would require an extensive consultation. So while the competition is out stealing all their parcels, we're going to sit there and consult and work through.
But that's not the union's fault. That's you're a Crown corporation, and the government has taken a long time to even examine the possibility of changing your mandate.
But our mandate is to be self-sustainable, and adding these kinds of costs at this time, the gap is just too big. If this was just a minor gap, we've moved forward on a number of things, including pensions and including wages and all this, to try and close that gap. But it's try to put a plan in place for the future, not try and put in concrete a mail-based postal system that is just getting killed out there. Postal systems around the world are facing the exact same problems, and they've been able to find changes and things like that. We're not there, and mail's not coming back.
Okay, I got to leave it on that note. Mr. Hamilton, thank you for making the time. I appreciate the conversation as always.
Thank you.
John Hamilton is with Canada Post.